Hi there, this is David and welcome to the Games That Made Me. Here, we're going to be looking at some of the games from my childhood that pretty much molded me and formulated who I am as a gamer. In the last video, I spoke about some fantastic portable games, the Final Fantasy Legend Trilogy. And today, I'm going to speak about probably the most formative game of my childhood and the best RPGs on the NES, the first 4 Dragon Warrior games. Just a note though, for this video, I will be using footage from my own LPs of the remakes of Dragon Quest 1 through 4, rather than the footage of the NES games. When I was a kid, there was no other RPG series as dominant as the Dragon Warrior one. The only real competitor it has was Final Fantasy, and there was only the single game on the system, whereas there were 4 high-quality Dragon Warrior games. The first time that I played it was with my uncle at my grandmother's house. I was so young that I couldn't really read all that well, so my brother and my uncle played while I watched, but I was enamored by the whole thing, and I knew that this was my type of game. It wouldn't be until the next year that I would actually get to play it through though. It came with a huge batch of games that my grandmother sent to us. The game was transformative to me, and on a personal note, it was my inspiration to learn how to read. I was 8, and I had missed a lot of school because we moved around a lot. I mean, my father was in the Air Force. So looking back now, I can see that I had some pretty big gaps in my early education. However, Dragon Warrior, as well as the hint books and guides in Nintendo Power, were a huge motivation for me to become a fluent reader, and I still thank the games for that to this day. Looking back at the original game now, it can seem archaic, but there was really nothing else like it at the time, and I didn't mind the grind. I thought that it was fun. I loved planning out what I had to buy at each town, and slowly exploring the world around me. One thing that I didn't actually have patience for as a kid was completing the game though. I think that the furthest that I got was to Cantlin or maybe even in the Rainbow Drop, but I never did actually defeat the Demon Lord until adulthood. I still remember the day whenever I got Dragon Warrior 2. I was in 3rd grade and out with my mother at some flea market, and this one stall had a few Nintendo games for like $5 each. I got Ultima, Quest of the Avatar, Stinger, which is a badass shooter, and Dragon Warrior 2, all for $15. In today's eBay age, I'm sure deals like that never happen. But back then, it was pretty common to stumble into like a garage sale or something and see some treasures. The second game was always fun to me because of its non-linearity and challenge. You could wait and get the silver key until after getting the princess if you wanted to, and once you got the ship, the world was your oyster. Though some quests are much easier to gather than others. I remember having the hardest time finding the town of Toon, and also I created a Dragon Warrior notebook, where I'd write down notes, draw maps, and record pertinent NPC dialogue. All that being said though, I think that the furthest that I ever got was to the Cave of Rome. Those pitfalls and repeating passages just pissed me off. So it wasn't until the Game Boy Color remakes came out in college that I actually finally beat the first 2 games. Now let's fast forward to the spring of 1991. I'm in 4th grade, and my friends and I were out riding our bikes through the neighborhood after school. A car came by and my friend swerved to get out of the way, only to crash into everybody else and create a huge bike pileup, which I happened to be at the bottom of. Everybody else was okay, of course, except for me, because I broke my left arm. So we rushed off to the hospital, and the next morning I woke to my mother not only letting me stay home from school for an entire week, but she bought me Dragon Warrior 3 as well because she felt so bad for me. She even moved the NES from the loft into my very own bedroom so I could play it pretty much non-stop. It was heaven on earth, because not only did I get plenty of uninterrupted playtime, it was also easily my favorite game on the system. I loved exploring the towns during the day-night cycles, delving into all the dungeons that it had to offer, and partaking in the many side quests. It was just game-changing to me. I mean, the quantum leap between this and the previous 2 games just can't be understated. I mean, in Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, side quests were little to none, and progression could be pretty convoluted. But in the 3rd game, side quests open up the second that you get to Romilly, and only expand from there once you get the ship, and the world is just so expansive and filled with cute hidden shrines, towns, and inns. When I wasn't playing the game, I was devouring the instruction manual, which also doubled as a strategy guide, and I studied the maps and charts that came with the game too. So even when Dragon Warrior 4 was released, I was still playing and enjoying the third title. I remember getting Dragon Warrior 4 as my graduation present after passing the 5th grade. As a late NES release, the coverage of it in Nintendo Power was pretty minuscule compared to the previous 3 games, but since this was my favorite series, I knew that I had to have it. The chapter system was different, and I definitely enjoyed some chapters more than others. What killed it for me though was that you couldn't control your characters in Chapter 5, but I had a solution for that. There was a code for the Game Genie that allowed you to have direct control over your guys, but I'm pretty sure that it didn't come in the main book. It was included in one of those expansion books that you had to mail away for. And speaking of mailing away, the instruction manual was sparse, nothing like how it was in the previous games. But I did spend my allowance to buy the strategy guide advertised in the back of the instruction manual. In fact, I still have it. Unfortunately, I didn't find Dragon Warrior 4 to be as good as the third one. It was much more linear, and the only side quests to really speak of are the Cascade Cave and mini metal hunting. Other than that though, it's pretty much just following the story until the end, which is fine, but just not what I expected when all the previous games had been open world. I still loved it though, and many times I would play it when my brother was hogging the SNES, playing F-Zero or Super Mario World. Unfortunately, Dragon Warrior 4 was the final game in the series that Enix would release because soon afterwards they shut down their American offices. But they were still the quintessential games of my early childhood, and they're definitely games that made me. This has been David. If you like what I do on this channel, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link to it can be found in the video description. And also, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.